Hi everyone, I'm Ryan, welcome back. So if you watched last week's upload, you'll see that I was using the Superdream and the front brake just faded, so it feels like it needs bleeding. The lever's just coming all the way back to the handlebars with only very slight braking, so there's definitely something wrong. Hopefully I can just bleed it up and that will sort it, but I suspect that will not be that easy, so we'll find out that together. What I do know about brake fluid though, because I'm certainly no expert, it's highly corrosive and it goes everywhere. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is removing everything that I've painted on this bike, because I don't want that to get covered in brake fluid. So let me get started with that. Hopefully we can get that out of the way, then I can get back onto the frame of the Scrambler. So that's all hardened up now, and I just want to get some files and just smooth the front end out and get that looking nice and ready for some future paintwork. So that's all for now. If you haven't already considered subscribing, please just click that like button or subscribe. That would be really appreciated. It does help me. It gives me massive incentive to just keep spending the time out here. I mean, I enjoy doing it, I love doing it, but the comments, the encouragement, they really are the icing on the cake, and I thank you very much for them. Right, let's get started now. Okay, first thing I've done is just inspect this, remove the cover, had a good little wipe around with some tissue to try and identify something. I mean, there's the slightest trace of oil on that caliper, but not a lot. It doesn't feel like it's, you know, got a big obvious leak or anything. Nothing obvious on the fuel, on the line itself. I've taken the cover off and that looks very dark in there. So that's probably the old oil, I suppose, probably in the lines coming through. So I'm gonna just try and siphon that out and put some fresh brake fluid in it. The other thing I've just remembered, an old trick that I understand works, to leave the lever held in for a period of time. So I'm just going to try and remove the excess oil, brake fluid I should say, change that, then maybe leave it for a while with the lever held, see whether that self bleeds. Maybe that's optimistic, but I think it's worth a try. So yeah, let me begin with that principle before I dive into too much. So I've been trying to bleed these brakes now for about an hour or so. I've got this pipe here with a one-way valve on the end that I'm just holding upright. So I'm holding the lever down, cracking open the bleed nipple, and I'm seeing fluid rise up and out the end of this one-way valve. But I'm getting basically no air. I have had a few bubbles earlier on, but nothing for a while now. Fluid's passing through, it's now coming out, looks reasonably clear. So it looks like fluid's going through the system, but the air blockage, wherever it is stubbornly not moving. Not sure what to do next. Okay, I've got a good working front brake again. I used the syringe. So what I did is I actually connected the syringe to the bleed. And I was using it to bleed the brakes in the traditional method. So, you know, I was holding the lever down. With that held down, I was cracking open the bleed nipple, and the fluid was rising up into the syringe. I did that many times until I filled all of this up to here with fluid. Then what I did is I cracked that open slightly and applied pressure from the syringe and then nipped it closed. So I suspect somehow, somewhere, there's still a small amount of air in this system. But now that it's closed, I've got a free spinning wheel which works, but a good brake lever. And that now's nowhere near the handlebars. And that feels firm and solid. So I'm going to try that, see whether it stays like that or fades again. But either way, for now, I've got a working front brake again. So yeah, let's tidy this away. And I've also got some thoughts on the lean running engine. I was just thinking about this. So last week I was confident that the engine's running lean, but I've got the original jets in this bike, so I don't see why that would necessarily be a problem. And then I thought to myself, what if the fuel flow from the tank is poor? I've never tested that. So one thing I'm going to do in a minute is I'm just going to get like a see-through jar and just test the fuel tank itself and just make sure that that's free flowing. Because if that's restricted, maybe that's my problem. Alright, well, let's get this tidied up and then we'll move on to the next test. Okay, right. Let's test this tank. So we can clearly see the fuel. I'll put that there. So this tells me that down is reserve and up is on. So let me try it on to begin with. Yeah, that's plenty. There's no problem on that. No problem on that at all. Let's try the reserve setting. Yeah, it's the same. Okay, so that tells me the problem is not a tank or the filter that's within it. I actually thought that was going to highlight a problem, to be honest. Right, okay, well, we'll keep checking everything else. Right then, so I'm just checking out the ignition system. I had these gapped at close to 0.6 mil, which the book suggests the tolerance is 0.6 to 0.7, but then the reference, the text, suggests just 0.7. So I've re-gapped these closer to 0.7. I've gone through the colours and tried to identify how my engine is running from the plugs, and I would say, there they both are, that as far as I could possibly determine, they're definitely not white, so they're neither of those two. They're not oily, so it's not that one. Again, not that nor this. So I think it's this, which is black sooty deposits indicate rich running. If no improvement is obtained, try one grade hotter plug. Okay, well, I think I need to run it more. I did re-oil the air filter last week, didn't do that on camera. Maybe that just upset it until that settled down and the oil, excess oil, came out the filter. Let's, I think I need to just try it again. Okay, so back onto the frame of the Scrambler. Need to get all this nice and smooth now. So I think good old file and time, and let's see if we can get all this where I want it to be. So it's just about done. Inside nice and clean. Outside profile's getting there now, so it's no longer got the protrusion of the steering lock. It just now needs to be cleaned up a little bit more cosmetically. But no, she's getting towards where I want it now. I'm just going to put a bit of primer on the outside, and I do not want it to go inside here. So I'm just going to use this method, a bit of masking tape, and just pin around the edge. And then, with a bit of luck, that pulls away neatly. There. A little bit more, a little bit more, nearly there. There we go. Perfect. Right. Now I can put a little bit of primer on it. That's now nicely shown up the high spots and low spots, so I know what to concentrate on. It looked alright before, it now looks like it needs a load more work, but that's what I expected. Okay, I've now just put the thinnest little a little bit of a body filler just to try and get out the imperfections. So we'll let that harden off, sand that down by hand, and then see how that's going to look painted. But there is no longer any evidence of a steering lock. So whilst I was waiting for that to harden, I've gone down a rabbit hole looking at these forks that I want to use. I'm not saying there's a problem with them, but these are the ones that I bought that I wasn't sure exactly what model they came from, and I thought I'd identified they'd come off of an XL125 from about 1987. That's what I thought they'd come from, and I was just stripping them down and taking a look when my attention actually got to the brake, and this brake just looks very strange to me. I mean, it fits the forks perfectly, but then when I've looked on the schematic for the bike, the XL125R, it's got a double piston front caliper, and this is clearly only a single piston. So now I've got no idea what year or model even this caliper comes off of, which I need to identify. If I'm going to strip it, I'm going to buy pads for it, I'm going to refurb it, I need to know what it comes from. And also I believe these were matched, so if I can work out exactly what they are, I can then shop for a front wheel, which should just be a straight plug and play. That's the hope anyway. So I don't know if anyone recognises this caliper. I'm going to put a few posts out onto some sort of Honda owners groups, see if anyone identifies it. There's some markings there, but I can't see any part numbers or anything that I could Google. Alright, well, I'm going to just reassemble it for now and turn a blind eye to it, because that could be a problem later in the build. In fact, what I can get on with, and I'm not being held up at all, is simple things like, oh, there goes my clothes falling down. Oh, the hook broke. That's cool. Right, get back to this. So I can get on with things sorting out like the kickstand, side stand even, take that down, rub it down, prepare it up and get it ready for painting. Okay, so the side stand off, it'll clean up alright and it looks all nice and solid and the bolt's fine, but I don't need nor want this rubber kick part here, so that's not necessary. It doesn't add anything to me, so I'm going to see if I can remove that from this kickstand and yeah, just lighten it slightly, simplify it. I think that's what I want to do. Okay, so a bit of grinding and filing later and I've got what I'm happy with. It's just a nice clean side stand. So that now needs completely stripping, prepping and painting. But yep, I'm happy with that. And there it is, looking sweet. So I'm happy with that. It's cleaned up quite nicely and it's ready for some primer and some paint. So I'm going to refit that in a bit, just so I don't lose it. Clean up the spring because that's all greasy, reattach that, and that's one more bit ready for some coating. Oh, isn't that looking nice? Just a side stand, but cleaner, ready, better. Okay, I'm not sure I've got much more time tonight, it's getting late, so I'm probably going to pack up for now, but hopefully I'll get a bit more time in here tomorrow.